Oh, wait, so get ready, because today we are diving headfirst into this whole "it ends with us" thing.
Yeah, it's everywhere you look right now.
Seriously, everybody's talking about it,
Yeah,
but like, not everybody's loving it, you know?
that's an understatement. It's a wild ride from what I've seen.
Right. So we're going to try to untangle this whole thing, figure out why this book and now this movie have people so fired up.
Mm.
Some people are like obsessed, and others are just not having it.
It's an interesting case study for sure. You've got this book, right? Marketed as like the ultimate love story, but then boom, the heart of it is about domestic violence. It's a tough line to walk.
Oh, totally. And we're not shying away from that. We're going deep with two YouTube reviews, kind of two sides of the coin. Cybernoop, they did not hold back, let me tell you. And Amanda the Jedi, who had a more like balanced take,
Yeah, Cybernoop, they went there. They called the whole thing disgusting.
straight up.
And Colleen Hoover, well, let's just say they were not fans.
No, they were not.
So they see this whole thing as like glamorizing an abuser, right? Ryle.
Yeah.
Like he's this, I don't know, tortured soul who deserves a second chance. And I mean, they make a good point, right? That's a dangerous message to put out there, especially for readers who maybe haven't experienced that kind of abuse firsthand, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Like, it's not just a fictional story for a lot of people, but then you have Amanda the Jedi who sees the movie, at least as a way to, like, empower people, to maybe recognize those red flags, those toxic patterns, and get out of those situations.
Right, which is an important message for sure.
Huge. And she also talks about how tricky it must have been to turn, like, such an intense and sensitive book into a movie.
For sure. There's a lot to unpack there. You know what both reviewers pointed out, though? The names. Oh, yeah. Lily Bloom.
Oh, Kincaid.
Like, come on.
It's a choice.
Is Colleen Hoover just messing with us? Or is there something more to it?
Right. Like, are those names supposed to mean something? Or maybe she just wanted names that would, like, stick in your head.
Maybe, maybe. But speaking of the movie, I thought it was so interesting what Amanda the Jedi said about the journal entries.
Ugh. Yes. The Ellen DeGeneres letters.
Gone.
Gone. Like, they were such a big part of the book.
Heck, I know. Lily pouring her heart out to Ellen. It made her so relatable. In the movie, poof, vanished.
It makes you wonder if it's because of all that stuff that went down with Ellen a few years ago.
Oh, yeah. The behind-the-scenes drama. It makes sense, though, right? Why bring that baggage into a movie that's already dealing with some heavy stuff?
Totally. The last thing you want is a PR nightmare overshadowing the important stuff the film is trying to say. But still, those journal entries, they added so much depth to Lily's character, all that vulnerability, especially with what she went through as a kid with her dad.
And speaking of her dad, they kind of glossed over that in the movie, didn't they? Like, the book really lays out how abusive he was.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely more in your face in the book.
So it makes you think, right? Like, by toning down the violence, are they softening the message? Is it possible to show the reality of abuse without being too graphic or exploitative?
It's a tough balance to strike. I mean, how do you show that without, like, traumatizing people?
Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
tough one.
But you know what they say, the devil's in the details.
Mm-hmm.
And Amanda the Jedi caught this one detail in the movie that I thought was really interesting, all the Finding Nemo references.
Oh, yeah. Like, I didn't even notice that.
Right.
Okay.
At first I thought it was just like a cute little Easter egg, but it's actually connected to a big theme from the book, this idea of perseverance,
Yeah.
of just keep swimming no matter how tough things get.
Wow, I did not pick up on that. That's a cool detail.
Right. Like, even when Lily feels completely lost and alone, there's that little glimmer of hope if she just keeps going.
Heavy stuff.
Speaking of heavy, let's talk about Ryle for a sec.
Okay.
Specifically, that line that sends chills down my spine every time. There are no bad people. We're all just people who sometimes do bad things. I mean, come on.
Ooh. Yeah. That's a tough one to swallow.
Right. Is he trying to be deep? Or is he just trying to justify being a jerk?
It's so common, though, you know? It's this idea that everyone makes mistakes, so it's fine, but that completely disregards the pattern, you
Yeah.
know? Like, Ryle wasn't just having a bad day. It was constant disrespect, pushing boundaries.
Totally. And it's scary how easily people can get away with that by just saying, oh, but I love you so much. Like, that's supposed to excuse everything.
Right. Like, love is a free pass.
Exactly. Like, no, that whole thing with the magnet.
Oh, yeah. In the book, it's this huge deal.
Huge. In the movie.
Gone.
It's like they just cut it out.
I know. And it's weird because in the book, that magnet, it represents Lily's connection to Atlas.
Which drives Ryle crazy.
Of course. He sees it as a threat. But the movie makes it seem like Atlas isn't really a big deal to Lily, so Ryle's jealousy seems more understandable. I don't know, it's weird.
It's like they wanted us to feel bad for Ryle. I don't know.
Yeah, it's strange.
And then there's the tattoo,
Ooh, yeah. The tattoo.
the symbol of her past with Atlas that Ryle literally tries to erase.
It's like he wants to physically erase her history.
Right, like she's his property or something.
She's so messed up. It's like he has to have complete control, even over her past.
And that's where the Taylor Swift song comes in, right? Tears Ricochet.
Genius. Pure genius.
It's like the perfect soundtrack for Lily finally breaking free.
Right. It adds this whole other layer to her emotions that you just don't get from the dialogue. You know, even Cybernoop, and they hated pretty much everything. Even they had to admit the music was a good choice.
Really? Even Cybernoop?
Yeah, it's like the one thing everyone seems to agree on.
Funny how that works.
Yeah.
But okay, let's talk about this whole redemption arc thing, because this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, buckle up.
Because the big question is, should someone like Ryle, after everything he's done, should he get a redemption arc?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And I think it's a question worth asking. It's not about letting him off the hook, but about understanding how we deal with these situations in real life.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that Cybernoop makes a really strong case for the no way, no how side. They were like, Ryle is irredeemable. End of story.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, especially those who've experienced that kind of abuse, that's going to resonate. It's not just about one mistake, it's the whole pattern, you know?
Absolutely. Like he tries to hide behind this I just love you so much excuse.
Ugh, the classic.
As if that makes it okay.
It's textbook manipulation, you know?
Yeah.
Twisting love into something that controls and suffocates.
Exactly. But then you have a man of the Jedi who, while not exactly condoning what Ryle does, points out that the movie doesn't really give him that clear path to redemption that the book does.
True. In the movie, he's pretty much out of the picture by the end.
Gone, like the Ellen letters.
Exactly. It's like he never existed, which, I don't know, maybe that's a more satisfying ending for some people. But then that brings up a whole other question.
Does Lily actually break the cycle?
Right. Is she truly free, or is she just jumping from one guy to another?
It's like, we can't win, can we? If she's single, she needs a man. If she's in a relationship, she's dependent.
It's a no-win situation, but I think the important thing is Lily made a choice. She got herself and her daughter out of a bad situation.
That's a huge step.
Huge. And it shows that she's not a damsel in distress. She's strong and capable of making her own decisions.
Totally. She takes control of her own life. It's just a shame that for some people it takes something so awful to get to that point.
It shouldn't be that way. But that's the reality for a lot of people, unfortunately.
Which brings us back to Colleen Hoover. Like, what's her responsibility in all of this? Is she using something really serious to sell books? Or is she trying to raise awareness?
Well, Cybernoop definitely thinks it's the first one.
Oh yeah, they did not hold back on that.
They basically accused her of being in it for the money.
And being formulaic, predictable.
Right. Like she's just churning out the same old bad boy trope.
Which, okay, guilty pleasure, maybe. But also, maybe not the best look when you're dealing with such a serious topic.
Yeah, and then there's the whole thing about her books being shelved in the romance section. Like, that's kind of misleading, don't you think?
Total bait and switch. You're
Yeah.
expecting hearts and flowers.
Yeah.
And you get, well, you get. It ends with us.
Right. And Amanda the Jedi, while they're not as harsh on Hoover, they do acknowledge that both the book and the movie could, even if it wasn't intentional, end up making those toxic relationships seem, well, kind of glamorous, especially to younger readers.
Totally. It's like that whole bad boy who's secretly a softie thing.
Yeah.
It's seductive.
It's that fantasy that love conquers all.
Even when it totally shouldn't.
Exactly. But maybe that's the point of the whole story. Like, by showing us the good, the bad, and the really ugly, Hoover's trying to start a conversation, even if it's messy and uncomfortable.
Because this is a conversation that needs to happen.
100%.
It's like it ends with us, this giant mirror.
Right.
It shows us all these different sides of love and relationships, the good, the bad, and the stuff we don't even want to think about.
Exactly. And it forces us to ask ourselves some hard questions.
Like, what do we really consider a healthy relationship? How do we define love? And when does someone's past stop being an explanation and start being an excuse?
Big questions. And it ends with us. It doesn't give us the answers, does it?
No. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, it's not about right or wrong answers, really.
Exactly. Life isn't a fairy tale, you know?
Definitely not. It's messy, it's complicated, people are flawed.
And sometimes those flaws, they can be really dangerous.
Which is why it's so important to recognize those red flags before it's too late.
Listen to your gut, set boundaries.
Yeah.
And know that you deserve a relationship that lifts you up, not one that drags you down.
Yes, yes, yes. That's what I'm talking about. It's about knowing your worth.
Exactly. So we've talked about the reviews, the controversy, the big questions.
I'm in deep.
Deep dive, for sure. But there's this one thought I just can't shake. What if it ends with us wasn't a romance? What if it was a thriller?
Ooh, interesting.
Would we still be rooting for Ryle? Or would we see him as the villain? It makes you think, right?
It does. It really does. It's like our whole perspective shifts depending on the genre, on the way the story is told.
Exactly. It shows how easily we can get caught up in the romance, in the idea of love conquering all.
And how important it is to take a step back and look at the bigger picture, to see the red flags, the toxic patterns.
Because sometimes the most important love story is the one we have with ourselves. The one where we choose our own happiness and safety above all else.
Couldn't said it better myself.
So until next time, keep those conversations going. Keep asking those tough questions.
And keep diving deep.
See you all next time.